Potter about whether he can manage all these big star names that he bought. I suppose he's going to be
Thank you.
On the show as well. Good morning, Nevin. How are you, my friend?
Good morning. Good morning. It's been a very exciting weekend. Not necessarily in terms of the results, but a lot of football and happy as always.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. Like you said, a lot of football everywhere, especially in the ISL. And it's been a couple of weeks since we've spoken, and a lot of things have happened. And we've got to a stage now where pretty much a quarter of the season has gone through. Is it getting to a stage where we've got to say it's business as usual with the same names at the top? And do you think this is giving a good idea as to where the teams are at the moment?
Absolutely. I don't think there's going to be a significant change in fortunes, and by the looks of it, I don't think we will see another Chennai in like last season, because the teams sort of have started indicating how they're going to play throughout the season. So yeah, I think it's a good time to draw early markers. But again, this is a league of surprises, so you never know if something is around the corner. But yeah, generally you get the feel. And our own, like even in our predictions, we sort of predicted these teams to do well, and they're starting to show why they're built as favorites.
Yeah, and we did, but there was one team that from a personal point of view, I thought might have a chance and sneak in. And like I said, I learnt my lesson last year writing off Chennai, especially when they got the new manager in from England, and look what he did. But what's going wrong with Odisha FC at the moment? I mean, I know they've had a tough start, 3 games in a week, and a lot of young players, but there was a lot of expectations, a lot of hope at the start. I thought they made a couple of good signings, foreign players from South Africa, and Taylor at the back, and I thought he was Taylor, and I thought the squad looked really good, but it's just not happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's largely down to the fact that it might be a little cruel on my side to say that it's a case of too many cooks spoiling the dish. But right now, I feel like this is a conflict in ideology. A lot of players wanting to do their own things on the field, and I've been really disappointed with Marcelino's attitude on the pitches. He didn't seem very interested. Just trotting around. The occasional flashes of brilliance is there, but you need 11 hard workers on the pitch. Unless you're like an exceptional talent like Messi, that the other, or a Maradona, the other 10 would be willing to work hard for them. So I don't know. I mean, it's very difficult to pinpoint. Like you said, it's still very early, and they have had a few major players missing, like Vinith Rai in the initial matches. So, but they have the squad. We expected much better. It does come down to this thing that we had a discussion with Rohan about, and Rohan sort of specified that they're looking for a manager who's versatile and can adapt. And now it is for him to prove his point. Whatever he had in his mind in the early matches didn't really work out. So now is the time for the coach to earn his money and say, hey, I came with this billing that I am a coach that will adapt to situations. Now we have a situation. Let's see what he can do.
I know with the injuries, and I take your point about Vinith. He started yesterday, and but in terms of the squad, I thought it was a good enough squad. I mean, they've not been totally outplayed. But the games I've seen, they've never looked like that they're going to win. They're really unlucky against was it ATK the other week where they lost in the last minute. But they just don't look as if they're going to win a game. They might sneak out a draw, which they've done once. But
I mean, if they deserved a draw, it is largely down to their goalkeeper pulling out excellent saves. So I don't necessarily agree with this point that they didn't deserve to lose. I think Odisha have been subpar so far this season and quite unexpected. There was a large level of expectations around the team, especially after last season's promising start and the last few seasons, especially under Gombao, they had a distinct identity. They were playing a certain way, they would trust their youngsters. Now I look at Odisha and I see conflict of ideologies. I don't know whether they trust their youngsters, I don't know whether the foreign players are motivated enough to play and be part of this exciting young project. It seems like a mismatch. And when you look at a team like Hyderabad, we never expected them to perform. They started with like 2 foreigners and they are playing their socks off. So that's what you sort of expected from Odisha. It's Hyderabad that's been delivering. So, but again, very early in the season, not very early, but like still early in the season, they can turn things around. At least, get some positive results, show that fighting spirit. I loved how Arshdeep, stood up when the situation got really tough last time around. So I would expect all the other players to show the same spirit. Go there and work tirelessly, because that's the only way to change your fortune.
And I agree with Arshdeep. As you know, we had him on the show and came across as a really great young man, and he had a brilliant game yesterday, or over the weekend rather. But in terms of Marcelino, I think I mentioned it, he was just not there in the first game, and he's not really turned up in a consistent basis. But looking at the bigger picture and looking at the age, and like you said, we spoke to Rohan, and this isn't a 1 season contract that he's got with Coach Baxter. It's a couple of seasons. Do you think our expectations were overly high, considering the young team, the new coach, a lot of new young? They did a huge number of signings. That we maybe need to give them another season, and then really judge them.
I think where we went wrong was the fact that they never really got a good preseason. So we sort of forgot that and just made our assumptions based on the squad. There's a lot of exciting talent there, but they have not really played together a lot, except the core Nanda and Jerry and Vineet and all that from the previous teams. The new signings like Toiba and all those exciting players haven't really played together, so it's going to take some time. I don't know, a set of fans would have been interesting. I think fans would have supported the team and pushed them to perform a little extra. I thought a lot of these games have really missed that fan edge, especially if you look at, say, Kerala versus Bangalore, for example. It almost seems like the players are okay not taking risks, and fans would not have allowed that. Fans would have screamed, cheered and things like that. And I think that's also affecting not just Odisha. I think all the teams in terms of motivation, in terms of what they want to achieve. And I think I didn't expect Odisha to be underperforming so much, but I think we need to it's a good reality check for us as well. Having a good squad is not enough. You need to have that camaraderie. You need to have played together. And like Northeast and Hyderabad, they've got something going for them. They don't have like a richly assembled squad with a lot of Indian starters and all that, but a lot of young players who are motivated and who are willing to play to a certain style. So I think Odisha need to take the same route. I think with Gombao, they had a certain identity. Now with Baxter, it's high time they put a foot down and say, this is how we're going to play. If a foreigner is not going to perform, out. We'll replace with the youngster, because they have to stick to an identity. It's not just 4 or 5 foreigners and then you build a team around.
No, I agree with quite a few points there, and just looking at their upcoming fixtures, they're not going to get easier. They've got BFC this week, and then Northeast United, and we'll talk about them in a minute before they play East Bengal. So it's, well, I suppose no game's easy in the ISL unless you're one of the big four. But just make your point about fans in the stadium. I know when they played at home, their form was very different to when they started last year. I know they had to play quite a few games away from the Kalinga Stadium last year, and when they played at home, the results changed. But we also saw that over the weekend in the Premier League. There was only 2,000 fans allowed in Tier 2 cities, and you saw the difference even 2,000 fans can make. I'm pretty sure Crystal Palace got that equaliser because the fans were there. Same with Fulham, they held on to that 1-1 because the fans were there. I think fans do make a big difference.
And I would say that I think the Manchester Derby it was played like a safe match. It was played like a training ground practice session because there was no fans. I mean, it's a derby and it's supposed to be like full of fight and tackles and desire to win. I thought two teams just played it safe, and that only happens because the fans are not there.
That was such a letdown, that game. I didn't want to talk about it, but you brought it up, and it was quite embarrassing. And Keane actually said, Roy Keane, I like him as a pundit, he called it at the end, how can you be hugging and smiling at the end of that performance? It was a terrible watch, and less said about that the better, but I think that's where both teams are. And yeah, I think if you had 60,000-70,000 in Old Trafford, I don't think they would have got away with that sort of a performance. But 2,000, I agree totally with the point about the fans though. Like I said, couple of thousand make a big difference. But the other team that I wanted to just talk about, we always talk about the Big Four and Big Five maybe this year, but Robbie Fowler and his introduction to the ISL. Is this a bit of a reality check, or was it expected in terms of how East Bengal, or should we say SC East Bengal, would find the transition? I know it's not the same squad as the I-League, nowhere near, but just to bring in a coach, big name coach with a few weeks to go, bring in a load of players, no league will allow you to get away with that.
Absolutely, and we did discuss this in our show as well. We thought Robbie Fowler seemed more like a marquee signing than a long-term project for East Bengal. It's like they wanted to bring a big name, they brought a big name. I personally feel they would have been better off looking at a young coach who could have, worked the squad and developed an identity and thought like long-term, but they wanted to enter the ISL with a bang. Unfortunately, it's a wrong kind of bang because they're not really performing at all. And they're struggling to score the goal, and it's just the team is all over the place. And I mean, to be fair, you can't really blame Fowler for it. They did assemble a squad with a lot of experience, but players perhaps past their best. So probably would have been a good I-League side. I would argue it wouldn't have even been a good I-League side because you need those fresh young blood with desire to go perform. And they're really facing it. And if you have to criticize Robbie Fowler, I don't think he helped his case by coming out and saying it's like these players have not even been posed and all those controversial things. It really doesn't help when you're trying to make marketing. Well,
it's funny you should say that because there's something I wanted to talk about, and I'm glad you gave me a good into this topic of coaching. And I mentioned it last week. That the Indian players certainly don't seem to have that game management or good decision making a lot of the times. When you get to this stage where you're playing in the best league in India and you're 18, 19 plus, do you think it's too late to be coached in terms of that, or can you be improved to a certain extent that you get better those sort of aspects of your game? Because I can see players being improved 1%, 2%, but what we're asking for is a big improvement in terms of how they play games. Do you think it's too late at that age?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a clear answer for it because I think in India we start football only quite late. our footballers sort of take this sport seriously by 13, 14. So it's not similar to Europe where they start at like 8, 9.
But we have
That
it.
itself is
I mean, there's quite a few baby leagues now, isn't there? And a lot of academies that start with kids.
I mean that's a completely different topic on itself. There are a few states like say Mizoram and Meghalaya who take it really seriously, but a lot of other baby leagues are. I mean, I don't want to call it a sham, but like it's a lot of kids coming and playing and going. It's not like a constant league that will ensure that the kids are playing all the time. This is usually a 2-week tournament that really hardly benefits football development at all. I mean, you can obviously the state FA can come out and say, yeah, we've conducted baby leagues and we're doing this and that, but the truth of this situation is that a lot of these leagues are not good enough to really improve football at that age. I mean, hopefully that's a start. Maybe the leagues will expand. Maybe they look at the successful models like the one in Meghalaya and try to implement it everywhere else as well. But baby leagues apart, I mean that's not our main topic here. I've seen the likes of Anirudh Thapa improve drastically. I've seen the likes of Farooq Chaudhary improve drastically. So it's not like the players can't improve after a point. I mean, definitely post say 27, 28, it's going to be really difficult. But also the players get wiser. So let's not discount that fact. They just know how to use their body well. They just know how to conquer space well. There's a lot of things. I mean, like look at Dimas for example. He is not Dimas when he was 25, but at 35 he is a different prospect and he brings so much to that Bangalore side. So I think players can definitely develop provided they are given the freedom and the right training. The approach shouldn't be like, oh, you Indian players are not good enough. You haven't been trained, you've not been coached. If you come with that attitude to India, then the players definitely not going to develop. And I think this is something that we've repeatedly said in the show as well. We want the Indians to be risk takers. We don't want them to just pass to the foreigner and let them do all the exciting things on a football pitch. That's what I liked about say Northeast, for example. A player like Chara, for example. Been pushing in a lot of through balls, been taking on a lot of defenders. We want coaches to encourage that. We don't want the coach to say, hey, you don't know anything about football, so why don't you pass to foreigner and just defend? And so it really depends on the coach, the team's attitude as well. Are you here for the long haul? Are you here to develop Indian football, or are you just going to just win somehow? And there is always an easy route to win. And you see a lot of coaches opt for it. Even Kibu seems to be going that route as well. Eelco did it last season. He used to just play 2 foreigners up front, put in those crosses. One or two will definitely become a chance, and that's easy football. Have 2 central defenders who are foreigners, 2 strikers who are foreigners, maybe a midfielder who can run the show, and have all these Indians just hit crosses after crosses after crosses, and one will become a goal. But that's not improving football in any. That's just, in Mourinho terms, it's like 18th century football. So it really doesn't benefit our football. So it really depends on teams. It depends on managers. I certainly feel we have to look at it like our footballers can improve at 25. We can't just say, oh, they're gone cases. No, we can't do anything about it. And I remember, I don't want to take a name, but a former Delhi Dynamos coach. I was partly working with the team at that moment, at that time, saying something like Indian defenders can't defend. They don't know how to do sliding tackle back then. It was a slightly controversial discussion within our close groups. And our argument was that a lot of these Indian defenders, while developing their skills, don't get to play in grass fields. So there is obviously the fear of hurting your leg, and just like slide tackle is the last thing you would do, because your skin from your leg is going to go, you're going to bleed and something like that. So you develop a different set of skills, and to bring back that confidence at the age of 25 or 20 or whenever you get access to a proper green field with a lawn is not easy. You want that fear to go at the age of 13, not at the age of 20 or 21. So there are infrastructural aspects to it as well. I hope the youngsters who now have access to good fields at like 15, 16 will be a new set of defenders. But we are seeing this is India in transition, especially in terms of football. So I think we need to be patient there.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's one of the games I was watching last week. I want to come back onto you, but just to reinforce what you just ended, that we need to be patient, is that I think it's the commentators that were saying that a few years ago all the teams wanted a foreign goalkeeper. They seem to think, it's the only way. There's not good enough Indian goalkeepers. Now we've got a whole host of good enough goalkeepers. I won't mention the performance yesterday, but generally we've got a good bench of very good young goalkeepers, and it's moved to. We've always had good midfielders and wingers, but it takes time. It takes patience. We didn't have that at the start, but we're getting there, and I'm assuming, I take on board that we need to be patient, and we'll see the transition to having better game management and decision making from Indian players, and being able to defend as the grassroots infrastructure gets better. But also on the flip side, we don't help ourselves by giving these coaches 1-2 years. They've got to get results immediately. But I also see that we've got to sometimes, I know what you said about Robbie Fowler and what he said, that it seems some of these players haven't been coached. But do you think there's an element of truth in that? Because you can see the frustration of these foreign coaches when they see simple balls not being successfully made, or the wrong decision.
Robbie Fowler is a Liverpool player.
No, but he's coached in the A-League, and that standard is not English football, is it? Baxter's coached in South Africa, so I'm assuming that standard is probably comparable to the A-League.
I suppose. I think. See, but Australia and India falls apart in terms of our national team players. So, yeah, in terms of the leagues and competition and everything, yeah, maybe it's close. But how many times do we see, an Indian play in a foreign league, for example? So, I don't think it's a fair comparison. In fact, I would go all out and say this is a sense of white snobbishness coming to India and just say, oh, you're not good enough. Why did you come? What did you expect? Did you expect a Liverpool set of players, or at least tier 2 of English football kind of players? No, you are here to improve football. You are a legend. We respect you. We're paying good money for you. Come here and improve our football. So if you have problems with the set of players, trust the set of youngsters. If you give a chance to a 17-year-old, coach him to become a better footballer. Materazzi was perhaps the most difficult in press conference, one of the most difficult coaches I've ever had to interact with. But he did give Jerry a chance. He saw nobody is good enough to be in the left back, so I'm going to give young Jerry a chance. And Jerry, turned out to become like a Chennai legend. I mean, he's played so many seasons now. And similarly, you need coaches to trust. Like if your expensive left back is not performing and not good enough or not coached enough, give a chance to youngsters. So I am not a big fan of all these coaches coming and saying things like Indian players are not coached well enough, not good enough. I mean, we all know it. You're just stating the obvious. Your job is to coach them, make them better.
Make them better, absolutely. But I believe he's going straight back to the A-League to finish their season after this. So that shows you where we are with some of the coaches that we bring in. I think that's down to us and the management of these clubs to, start giving Indian coaches a chance, start changing the rules, bring a bit more medium to long-term planning. And that might change, but things like I think
I just if I might just interrupt. If you look at Hyderabad, if you look at Northeast, two exciting young teams with not a lot of foreigners. They've been supported by, say, the likes of Khalid Jamil and Tankwai Singh, two established Indian coaches who have a lot more say in those teams, and they're getting good results out of it. So, I mean, that itself should show that why don't you have like good, trustworthy young Indian coaches or old Indian coaches to back your system up. Like, okay, get a foreigner, but don't give full license to the foreigner to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, no, absolutely fair point. Yeah, totally agree with that. But that again leads me to my next point, and might be surprising, might be too strong a word, of the performance of Northeast, and we've talked about them before, and you and I have both been impressed by Gerard News in terms of the way he's playing. But you mentioned the backup staff he's got and the young talent he's got, and he's maximising that. How have you thought of their start, which has been really impressive? And to the bigger question, can they sustain it with the squad they've got?
The sustained part is a little doubtful, because I think especially somebody like Kamara in that midfield has been like stupendous, absolutely stunning all over the field. For me, he's been one of the best performing foreigners, and no fuss. He's just working hard. He's happy to be part of the team, and that's the kind of players we really want in India. I think he's happy to work with the youngsters around him. And I think, Gerard News has sort of become like a cult figure in the 5-6 matches that Northeast has already played this season. He's young and he's dynamic. He's not afraid to speak up for his team. He really believes in the prospect of the team, and that is the exact kind of profile we're looking for in our coaches, right? We want people who will trust our players, who will come up with a system that suits our players. So far it's been exciting. I mean, I doubt whether they have the squad depth to pull off a miracle come end of the season, but even if they finish say 5th or 6th, I think that's a good season for them, because most of us didn't expect them to even be challenging for a playoff spot, and here they are giving it a fight to every team that comes across. FC Goa, Bangalore, all of them are struggling.
Yeah, well, when you say they're struggling, how do you mean they're struggling?
As in, like I think because of the shape that Gerard Joseph sort of instilled in Northeast side, there are a bunch of hard workers, not willing to allow other teams to penetrate. I think oppositions have struggled. They thought FC Goa thought they'll just pass around and score goals for fun. Didn't happen. Bangalore thought they could use their physical size and intimidate Northeast. That also didn't happen. So it is a team that is ready to fight whatever is thrown.
And that was a great result against BFC, great equaliser as well. But sometimes, passion and commitment and camaraderie gets you a long way, as I remember from supporting a famous Leicester City Premiership win. You don't need the most talented players, you need a group of committed players, and you never know how far you can get. So I'm hoping Northeast can stay there. It'll be interesting to see if they do, which of the big four that misses out on that. But talking of the big four, I have to take your views on the game yesterday, and how is Kerala this morning? That was a very mistake-ridden, put it that way, match from the team that you near Kerala. A lot of mistakes in that game.
It's become the norm now. I think these sort of silly mistakes is part of all the games that Kerala Blasters have played this season. And this rivalry with Bangalore also is more to do with people, a lot of Malayalis being there in Bangalore and them supporting Bangalore FC. And it's more of a cultural thing than in terms of football. I think Goal.com's journalist Nishant had pointed out that they played 7 matches, of which Bangalore have won 5, drawn 1 and lost 1. So this shouldn't be a competition in any sense, and this is not exactly a derby as well. We're split by 700 kilometers, 800 kilometers, so it's not like 2 nearby cities as well. But there has always been a lot of hype. It's one of the best attended games, even in Bangalore, even in Kerala. It's usually full house. We did miss that yesterday, but Kerala is all over the place right now. I think the defense is horrible, and he was still experimenting, trying to find his best balance, and there's a lot of pressure from the fans as well. I think people were expecting a miracle, because that's what we do as football fans, but it was a good reality check. It's not something that came as a big surprise, that loss. I think everybody secretly kind of knew the team was going to lose, and Bangalore are a superior side. But mind you, this is not a Bangalore that's been playing very good football, and Kerala made it look like they are they're playing like peak Barcelona. So Kerala is a work in progress, and I hope they trust the coach and the team and back them enough, and not again go looking for another coach next time.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the rivalry, and I was looking at that, and I thought, is there a good competition between the teams in the south? Like you said, they're hundreds of miles apart, but they are from the south part of the country. So, and I thought, have Kerala in the past, because I'm, as you know, new to this, have they had the edge over Bengaluru when they joined the league, or against CFC? Who are the kings of the south? And every year it's been Bengaluru. So I was fascinated to see if there was actual competition between Kerala and BFC. But like you mentioned, a friend of yours did the stats and said Kerala had won. Only won 1 or 2 against BFC. But it's more down to the fans rather than the actual teams being so close.
Absolutely. I think in terms of a close southern rivalry, it has to be Chennai and Bangalore. They are 2 successful sides. Actually won the ISL as well. With Kerala, I don't think it's fair to compare.
Yeah, and you've got to add Hyderabad to the mix. They had I think they were behind. I was doing some of the figures yesterday, and they were just behind BFC last year in terms of the southern teams playing each other.
I suppose, but like sitting here in Kochi, I don't know if Hyderabad is closer than Goa. So it's very difficult to really, pit against each other, saying the southern teams. They're too far off these cities. And I think it's easier to go to Goa than it is to Hyderabad in terms of if you're taking the road, for example. So, Hyderabad is definitely up. It's an upcoming team. They were Pune, so for people who've been following football for a long time now, we've not really mentally made the transitions.
All right.
So far.
Okay.
It's still Pune and it's also Hyderabad. Hopefully that entire transition will happen in the next few months, and we will call them a proper southern team.
That's from an outsider's point of view, and if you say it's a proper Hyderabad team, to be counted as a certain team will take a season or 2. That's interesting, but that just shows the rivalry as well, I suppose, the acceptance of a change. But one thing, it just reminded me when you were talking about the game yesterday, do you think our players are good enough to bleach their hair? Do you think they've reached that level? And I thought, we had this thing with Fofana here for Leicester. A young 19-year-old, came from France, was thrown in because of injuries. He was playing outstanding football, decided to dye his hair, and his form, wasn't as good as what it was. He's still young, and we've got a lot of hope he's going to be a world-class player, actually, moving forward. But I think you have to be at a certain level and performing consistently before you bleach your hair. And I've noticed a couple of Indian players bleaching their hair, and I'm thinking, really?
Yeah, I don't think they know about the cultural significance of bleaching their hair. I think they just did it because it looked cool on them. Kind of liked how KP Rahul have sort of...
Well, he's the one that reminded me yesterday, and I thought, you've got a bit of influence in Kerala, so could you have a kind word and say, just leave it for a season or 2 before you start bleaching your hair? But no, that just...
But I like the fact that he's a confident person. He obviously trusts his ability. Because if you don't trust your ability, you're always trying to hide and blend in.
True.
Stand out.
And he took his chance really well yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the inside Indians especially, there were a lot of talks that he maybe should be converted as a wing back, and I was like, oh my god, please don't do that to another footballer who's exciting and can score goals for us. Please don't put him back as a wing back just because he's got pace to burn.
Yeah, and that seems to be the prime first choice for Indian players, is to be wing backs and wingers, and that leads me on to the next topic of strikers, and I was looking again as to seeing who's leading the Indian Strikers League for the past few years. There's only one name, but obviously that's Sunil. Do you think where he's playing now, is that where he's always played for BFC, in terms of on the left, not as a out and out striker?
That is his breakout position, to drift from the left to cut into the right and score goes out. So J3 sort of became Sunil J3's for Bangalore. But coaches have, worked him in like multiple positions. Constantine sort of always played into the more central role for India, and Roca also sort of preferred him in like a drifting centralish sort of position. I don't know the logic behind putting J3 in the left. I'm sure he has a big influence, and he himself has talked to the coach that this is probably his best performing phase. I don't know what to make out of J3. He's still the best we've got, but I sort of sense that he's had a dip, and I don't know if that's gotten to do anything with the way Bangalore is playing. It's no longer those fast counter attacks when Udanta breaks free, cuts in across, and he just finishes. Bangalore has become more of a physical side. They put in a lot of long crosses, diagonals, and all. Probably doesn't suit J3's game so much to play this way, but they're still doing it, and I don't know. It sort of helps that there is Ashik in the left flank. He's sort of playing like an Alfonso Davies role. He's just, he's back defending as well, and he's sometimes the most attacking of their forwards as well. So the fact that Ashik is putting in an unbelievable set of performances recently, he's been physical as well. Sort of helps J3, in terms of covering the left wing. But otherwise, he would be a liability on the left wing, I feel, because if there's a good somebody like a Prabir Das playing in that wing, it'll be difficult for him to man mark a defender and contribute in defense as well. So I'm not really entirely convinced by Bangalore's side. Honestly, they've also been a little off color. I don't think Quadrat has managed to evolve Bangalore from what Roca had taken them to, and now they're more like get the result somehow, overly reliant on set pieces. I don't enjoy their football. As long as they get their results, I don't think a lot of people will be complaining, but not necessarily the best for Indians as well.
Yeah, I think, I enjoy their football more than 80k Mohan Bagan's at the moment, I'll be honest with you. But do you think there's too many stars in, and he's got to rotate, and that doesn't always help either? But there's also another name that kept popping up when I looked at the stats for the past few years in the Super League, and maybe you can enlighten me as to what's happened with JJ. He seems to be always in the top 2 or top 3 goal scorers in terms of Indians in the ISL. What's happened to his career?
JJ had a massive injury and sort of had to take like an entire season off, and he's not really recovered from that injury phase. So JJ J3 was, even for Indian national team, the preferred front two, but he's sort of been out of the scene for almost good 2 years now. So yeah, let's hope JJ can rediscover some sort of a magic, because he had that finishing touch that a lot of Indian strikers didn't have, that confidence inside the box. So, but I do think we have to look forward. We need younger ones taking up that position. There seems to be a little bit of confidence developing in Manveer.
Yes.
Kind of like his role in ATK, playing with Roy Krishna as well. He's taking the ball from a midfielder kind of a position and attacking defenders. That's good to see. But we need more. We need more Indian strikers doing that kind of thing, doing different kind of things. Like we need to tap in merchants as well. Penalty box experts, people who can strike it from a distance. So
yeah,
I don't know how which player is going to evolve into that. So we thought Farouk was going to have like a stunning season, but unfortunately he's not really been in the scene. And I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see if some manager is going to trust an Indian network.
And he was the name that I put down as I'm learning more about football in my amateur way. I was trying to build an Indian team from the players I've seen, and Manveer was the one that I stood out from in the first few games in terms of he's got the height and he knows where the goal is, and I thought he's probably a player that can start for us internationally.
It's a strange case though. I personally feel Manveer prefers having the ball on his feet. But just because of his physique and the way the way he looks, the impression that a lot of people who watches football is that he can be a target man. I don't think he can be a target man. I think he can be a good striker, but like a more of a Fernando Torres. I mean, it's very good comparison. I'm just saying that Torres and Morata, all of them are very good in the air as well. I'm just saying that he doesn't necessarily come out he's not a Didier Drogba. So don't try to make this player into a man who will hold two defenders and can wait for the midfielders to join. He's not that kind of a player. But his expectation has always been to be that player.
So you don't think you can hold the ball? He's not a person you...
I don't think he's that good. And I don't think he wins a lot of headers as well. He wins it against, say, when he's in the wing and he's jumping with a full back who is probably half his size. So that really doesn't matter. But like against central defenders, like big toss and everything, he doesn't win a lot of headers.
But when you look at generally the Indian players, he does stand out because of his height, like you say. And that's why he stood out for me, and I thought he's a natural as a target player. But obviously, from what you're saying, that that's not his part of his game. But two players that I've been really impressed with, I've really enjoyed watching them, is players like you've mentioned, but is for the first time I'm seeing them play on a regular basis, is Anurag Thapa and Brandon. I think they're both exceptional talent and really good to watch. And do they often play? I mean, I should know that. Well, maybe I shouldn't know this, but are they regulars for playing together in the national team?
We've had very little football once these two sort of broke into the scene the last 2 years. So, yeah, but then Sahal also was a big deal in the last 2 years. So, a lot of the times coach thought maybe Sahal instead of Brandon, or somebody Sahal instead of, not Thapa. Mostly instead of Brandon has sort of figured in a central midfield. But Brandon has always been exciting, he's always getting game time. I think the future would be to look like a midfield diamond, because you want both of them playing. And both of them have the capability to become like a box to box and not necessarily a CAM sort of a role.
Yeah.
So a midfield diamond and somebody like Suresh from BFC or Deepak Tangri for Chennai. A lot of youngsters are also developing as a good holding midfielder, or the last bit of protection before they take this defense. So I'm looking from a national team point of view, both of them have to play, because they're probably India's best players, Brandon and
they've stood out for me.
Yeah, they are undoubtedly one of the best players. So we need to come up with a system where we can have both of them playing, but there is also some support in terms of defense as well, because Thapa does defend a lot, but sometimes you need like good big, central defenders, central midfielders who will block everything that comes their way, or somebody like a Suresh or an Amarjeet who will run their socks off throughout the match and annoy the opponents enough to win ball. So I think there's an interesting pool of central midfielders developing for it. That's one area.
And I think something that we'll talk about in the future as my knowledge of Indian football grows, and get your feedback in terms of what you think. But if there's one player that can bleach his hair, tell Anurag he's allowed, in my opinion. He can bleach his hair. I think he's at that level already, so give him that news. But I
would say that he needs a haircut.
Listen, in my opinion, if you can play like that, you can have whatever hairstyle you want. Is when players are not at that level and then do stuff with their hair, or wear flashy boots, and it just, I like confidence and I like arrogance. I've said it on the cricket shows. I like the young Indian players who've got that little fight, but they're at that level where they can do that, and they're performing internationally to allow them to get away with that. But some of our footballers, just turn it down a little bit, just a little bit. It's been an absolute brilliant Monday morning start for me. You know what Mondays are usually like, but I think this might become a regular. It just cheers me up, and it feels like I'm ready for the week. So it's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you, my friend, as always, and hopefully we can catch up again very soon, and have a brilliant week.
You too. Bye.